Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special edition of Beyond the Album Cover with Jarrell Mason. We're going to talk a little bit about music, but primarily for this podcast, we're going to talk about one of my favorite pastimes, playing video games, whether it's regular Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. When I was dead broke, man, I couldn't picture this. RP Christopher Wallace. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff with my main man, my brother from another mother. We met back in the day in college, so we're going to talk about esports and the whole nine with Mr. Isaac Crumpton. Isaac, welcome to Beyond the Album Cover, bro.
Oh man, thanks for having me. So it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to be here talking with you, and it's been a minute. So tell the people, how did you end up in Greensboro, and how did you find your passion for playing video games?
All right. Well, in Greensboro, that's where I went to college and everything. And it's like I've always had like a passion, for video games and everything. I say like, it goes all the way back to I'm wearing my Contra shirt right now, and it goes all
Flex
the way
on them.
back to around that time. Yeah, man. And my dad, he had brought that game for me as a boy and stuff, and it's just like, I just fell in love with it, man. So, eventually I started learning about, codes that are in different video games and stuff, and Blockbuster was the thing back then to get your video games from and stuff. So we would go there like almost every weekend to pick out a few games and stuff like that. And, you could read them for 2-3 nights, but, read them on a Friday, turn them back on a Sunday and stuff. And yeah, man, that was a good time and stuff. And we eventually moved, and Movie Max, that was another video game store and stuff. I think that was more on the mom and pop side. Blockbuster was more commercial. You saw the commercials and all that and stuff. But Movie Max, I remember every Friday. That's when my mom would get paid, and we would go to the gaming store and rent a game and stuff. And your friends would get together and everything. Now you can do gaming like online and stuff with different people. Some of some you don't know. But back then you had to all like sit together and be together and stuff. And then that kind of gave you a different feel. Different fight. Feel that you're playing with people that you know and everything. We would play for hours, man, hours and stuff. And after that we'll talk about the game and everything and stuff. And to this day, man, I'm still close with those same guys I used to play different games with and stuff. But yeah. So many classics out there. The list. More than just Contra. The list goes on and stuff.
Right, because I never really realized the whole communal aspect of you and your boys playing video games together and you're chatting, trying to figure out different strategies on to beat it. And then you had some games where it required a multi-tap adapter. Now, for those of you that are too young to remember, older consoles like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, they would require a special piece that you would have to add on to the control port so that way you could get 4 players to play.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true, man. And you would just have the 4 players. Certain games would allow 4 players and everything, and you could have a good time with that.
Yeah, but I can relate to the whole Blockbuster thing because in my neck of the woods we had Blockbuster and a mom and pop video rental spot called Entertainment Connection, where if Blockbuster didn't have it, then you would go to Entertainment Connection. You were going to pay a little bit more because it was a mom and pop, but they were a reliable backup. And also the local gas station in my neck of the woods also did video and game rentals.
Yeah, man, awesome. So it definitely brings back those childhood memories and stuff. I've noticed that a lot of the newer games and stuff, they're starting to pull out from the older games when I was coming up and stuff. And believe it or not, I took a long break from video gaming. I say back when I got into like high school, up until probably like right now. And so, I collected them on and off throughout the years and stuff like that. But as far as like playing them like I used to as a kid, I kind of stepped back from them and stuff, because I guess it was just kind of instilled in me to, go to school and go to college, make good grades and everything like that. And but I looking back, I kind of could have probably just kept doing what I was doing with video gaming. There's a lot of good content that came out between my high school years and now and stuff like that. And I just feel like, I should have balanced it a little better as far as keeping up with a lot of the good stuff. But yeah, that's
Right. So tell the people, where did you attend college for undergrad?
undergrad. I went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. So yeah.
Spartan Pride, you know what it is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, did you end up staying in the hood part of UNCG? You know the hood part of UNCG, Cone, Reynolds, and Grogan. It was like tucked back in the cut.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, man. I was in Grogan. That was my freshman year hall, Grogan Hall and
Word.
stuff. That was yeah, man. That was some good time. Yeah, the hood. That's what they call Grogan Hood stuff. And yeah. I was on the eighth floor. I was on the eighth floor. So there weren't a lot of people up there. I think the other floors they had like a lot of the people. I mean, my floor was pretty quiet, but I
Yeah.
guess that was a good thing.
Mine was opposite. I was on the third floor, freshman and sophomore year. But as you and I both know, with both of us going to UNCG and college in general, good time to get in on some video game tournaments. You go to somebody's dorm room who got the PS2, who got the PS1, who got that brand new Madden, and you just run it back for hours.
Yeah, man. Those tournaments and stuff. Yeah, a lot of people can relate to the tournaments that were had in college and stuff. Gaming it's just a way to bring everybody together and stuff, the new people and everything, especially coming to college and getting to know a lot of the new people. Gaming was like that, probably the main way to you know meet people and stuff. One of the ways
Mm,
and stuff.
yeah, so taking it back with Nintendo. Now I know Nintendo is infamous for pretty much having exclusivity with their games, where they don't really allow a lot of third-party developers to develop games on their consoles. Do you kind of know the reason kind of behind why Nintendo was such a stickler for not letting third parties develop games for the NES?
Wow. I guess the first thing that would come to my mind is probably like the money, that's involved and stuff with letting their proprietary type games out there and stuff. So they kind of try to keep it exclusive. So I think it would be around money, that the company wants. I mean, I think there's several documentaries out on Nintendo. Nintendo wasn't always a video game company and stuff. I think they started off something else and stuff, but they've been around longer than most people know. Like I think the early 1900s and stuff. So I mean, yeah. So yeah, I think it's definitely around money as the short answer to your question on the reason why they try to keep their items changed. I think it was like in the 50s whenever Nintendo switched to whatever they were doing to games and stuff. And
Mm,
Nintendo, they also saved the video gaming market. So I think it's a story in 1983 where Nintendo, when the video game market was going down, I think the game ET was released. So I actually remember that game. I mean, we had a Atari, whenever I was a boy, and so it was the game ET that was released, and I guess it just flopped and everything. And but Nintendo came in and with the new Mario, and I think families and kids and everybody just fell in love with it, and it just took off from there. So
yeah, with the video game crash of 83, it was pretty much a dark period for video games. You mentioned the ET game on the Atari 2600. They actually took all of the leftover cartridges that didn't sell and buried them in a landfill in Alamogordo, New Mexico, which is about 6 hours south of where I am in New Mexico.
wow. That's yeah, man. Yeah, man. That's yeah. I can't imagine like disposing a bunch of video games. I said, let me just play it one more time.
Yeah, but if
Yeah,
you look at
man.
the Atari, it was groundbreaking for its time, with Pong and then later on Space Invaders and the various gaming systems and cartridges coming out of Atari. But the joystick, it kind of looked more like something you would see for a airplane game with the one joystick and the one button, and it didn't really allow a lot of freedom of movement while playing, because pretty much you had to sit stationary by the TV and almost literally stare at the glass or through it at least in order to play the game.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, the controllers is what I remember. And I just think gaming has come a very, very long way, man. Stuff. I actually have one of those flashback consoles for the Atari and everything and stuff. I really wish I would have. I mean, I kept a lot of old stuff, with the Nintendo and everything. But I really wish I would have kept the Atari that we had and stuff because the flashback consoles are like built-in games, whereas the Atari you had the little black cartridges that were they were a little smaller they were more bulkier than the Nintendo ones, but they were just, a little smaller and stuff. But yeah, that's a very memorable console there. So.
And you mentioned the NES and how in '85 Nintendo single-handedly pulled the video game industry out of the pit of despair, and they were reaping the riches off of it thanks to a little plumber by the name of Mario, which made his first appearance in Donkey Kong, and then the various spin-offs of Mario Brothers. So can we talk about the company and the controller that's on your hat, the NES controller, where you're always playing with power?
Yeah, man. Yeah, Nintendo, man. I mean, that's my total childhood, man. And it's like everything that Nintendo was just like, the controllers they were better than what we had before its time and everything. And they weren't as complicated. The games were pretty simple. I remember playing Mario and getting a Nintendo for Christmas as a boy and stuff. My next game after that was Contra. Then I mean the games were like operable. I mean systems they can a new system can bring out one thing, but it's the games that really kind of stick with you more and stuff in my opinion and stuff. And I felt like the games that Nintendo had for its time were pretty good. You had the uh Turtles. That's another big thing I wanted to bring up and stuff. They're coming out with a new Turtles Shred of Revenge now. But I remember the Turtles that came out on the console, the arcade, that they had and everything and stuff. I was a big, big, big fan of Turtles back in the day, and just seeing that and stuff. And not only with the Turtles franchise, Mario, Super Mario 3 was very epic and everything. And I kind of remember how McDonald's and Nintendo had a partnership back in the day with with their gaming and everything. So you would get I basically don't remember, but there were Happy Meals that you could get, that were Mario Happy Meals and stuff. But yeah, man. But what I do remember about the Nintendo and McDonald's, like I guess partnership, was that McDonald's back then it was for kids and everything. So they would have the playpen and they would have like different video game setups at some of the McDonald's, not all of them. And you could just go up there, kids could go up there and just play the games for free and everything and stuff. So, it was, whenever I was in town and stuff, I grew up in Lumberton, but Fayetteville was the one that had it, which was about 30 minutes away. And we would visit Fayetteville a lot. That's where my dad lived. And, we would, I would always ask, can we go to that McDonald's specifically? It was a little further out, but, from where, my dad was at. But yeah, man, it's just, very good experience there. Cause I would go there and, spend maybe less than $5 on a meal back then and just game for hours, man. So
Man, back when it was all so simple, the McDonald's in my neck of the woods didn't have the gaming area. The bigger one in Rocky Mount, North Carolina did. So I got a chance to do that. But the highlight for me was, you remember how back in the day when you would go to, let's say, Walmart, Kmart, or Sears, and they would have the little
oh
gaming
yeah.
station and they would have the demo disc?
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
told my
man.
mama,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to be right here. You come get me when you're done close shopping.
That's right, man. I said, come back and get you later. I remember that. They would, have them set up right there. They would be free and everything and stuff. And I mean, man, a free game. That's a child's dream right there. Play a free new game and stuff. And but yeah, I definitely remember that in the different stores that were out. That most of them. Well, Kmart's not here anymore,
Nope.
but Roses and Walmart, they're still around. Yeah, very epic memories there, man.
Yeah, pour a little bit out for Montgomery Ward and KB Toys.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, man.
Yeah, I used to visit Montgomery Wards because we didn't have a Toys R Us, and the only thing I would do is stare behind the counter because that was where they kept all of the games locked, and just window shop and kind of make a mental note, say, let me make sure I have this game circled whenever that JCPenney Christmas catalog came in the mail.
You right, man. You right. So yeah, man. Epic times there. Epic times.
Mm,
You know?
but
Um,
if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, then you would know the code based off of the shirt. Show the shirt again for the people that's maybe
oh
watching.
yeah,
Yeah, if
yeah.
you grew up playing this game, which I never beaten, you remember this code, the Konami code. Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA start. Now, if you play any Konami game, that magical code that I've given you would unlock different codes, but for Contra, it was infamous because of what reason, Isaac?
Yeah, the 30 life code. Yep. 30 life code. Yep. Yep. Your 30 lives. Because Contra would only start you off with 3 lives.
Yeah,
Three.
three.
And that was pretty tough because you had to get through 8 levels. So that was, I think, it was 8 levels in the game and stuff. And they were pretty difficult levels and stuff. Um Contra didn't have the ability to select difficulty of it, like easy, normal, hard, and everything. It was just the same thing for everyone. So it's like if it was too hard, you just had to either practice with just the 3 lives or use the code. So yeah, Contra was it was a great game. It is a great game.
Mm,
Yeah, awesome game.
yeah. So were you able to beat Contra without the Konami code, or did you have to put the Konami code in order to beat it?
I think I've only done that one time in my life. I was living out in Winston-Salem for grad school. I was 24, and it's like I just started playing it, and I was getting through the levels, and I finally got through it. I beat the whole game one time without the code. So I tried to do it again in a couple of my lives. It didn't go too well, but
Man,
but maybe one day I'll get it back before I get too old.
Man, that was back when beating a game was an accomplishment, because you got to think about it, kids. There was no internet when we were coming of age, where the only
Oh,
closest thing you got was you had to call the gaming hotline, and hopefully your mom or daddy didn't see the phone bill, or spend $20 at Walden Books or whatever bookstore to get the gaming books that have the secret tips and tricks.
yeah, man. Yeah, man. I remember those times and stuff. So, you know,
Yeah, because I can remember paying almost $20 to get a book for Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 for the arcade version, where I like Mortal Kombat. The only knock that I have is that the moves are very specific, where it's not really an easy pick up and play for a casual gamer, where you really had to know the in and outs of the fighter that you selected in order to pull off combos or finishing moves.
right, right. Yeah, man. Yeah. Mortal Kombat. It was definitely a trendsetter and stuff. And everything. And as far as I think rating video games and stuff. I think they were what's the right word? Um Not scrutinized, but well, kind of, in the sense where gaming's had to get like labels on, like different movies would get labels and stuff based on like, the finishing moves and everything and stuff, that were in the game and stuff. So yeah, more comment.
Yeah, because if you remember the different ports of Mortal Kombat, Sega, they didn't have blood, but you had to put in a special code at the beginning of the screen in order to get blood to be enacted. Because Scorpion would say, "Get over here," once the code was put in correctly. And then if you played a Super NES port, it substituted blood for sweat.
Yeah, yeah. That's good, great, valid point. In those days and to make and stuff. And I the code for Sega. That's the one I played the most. Was the second one because I had got to say I didn't get a Super until way later and stuff. But Sega, the code was ABACAB. It was ABACABB. And that code, you'll hear the Scorpion, get over here and stuff. and you know, that it just made the game more realistic, more interesting, and everything and stuff. You know, yeah, it definitely you know, was an eye opener in the gaming stuff, because before then, you know, I think the closest thing to Mortal Kombat was probably Pit Fighter. You know, that was a smash hit arcade and stuff. That was a fighting game, but it was nowhere near to like finishing moves and everything like that. So,
So preceding Mortal Kombat, there was a video game that originally came out in '87. It was pretty much kind of story based where you could only play as Hadouken Ryu, but then in 1991 they reformatted
yeah.
it and it became the worldwide phenomenon of Street Fighter 2, which brought to us Ryu, Ken, Guile, which his theme goes great with everything. Blanca, Chun-Li, E Honda, and Cruz. So what makes you think is the longevity behind those two franchises, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, to where generations are still playing those two separate mediums to this day?
Oh man, like the longevity that was in Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. I mean, there's so many things like Street Fighter. Well, I'll start with Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat, I think the finishing moves that was like, I want to say the first game they had. There were other games that I think tried to get on that same level and everything. I think there was Primal Rage and Eternal Champions that had a little part in there where you could do a finish move. But I think Mortal Kombat is the one that started it and set the bar on you know, how to do that. Well, Eternal Champions, they were pretty good, but you know, I think you know, Mortal Kombat was the one that had the longevity and the new characters. You know, the characters. You know, they just had all different types of characters in Mortal Kombat. I'm like, how did they come up with this stuff? You know, um, yeah, and then Street Fighter. Oh man, you know, they had you know, man, it's just the memorable moves, the Hadoken, the uppercuts, you know, that Ryu and Ken would do. I think Street Fighter, in both Mortal Kombat, they both had movies, you know, that came out in the 90s. And after that, I think there was one in the early 2000s for Street Fighter, if I remember correctly. But yeah, the movies and everything. And what else? What else? You had the paraphernalia, you know, as far as you know, toys and stuff that resemble Street Fighter and everything and stuff. And the marketing that took place with those two games, I think that's what, you know, contributed to its legacy as far as well, its longevity, as far as being around to this day stuff, you know. And it just kept getting better and better and better, you know. Yeah,
Right, and I'm
over
definitely
time.
looking forward to that new Mortal Kombat movie that'll be dropping next month. Although I am tight that we're not getting a Johnny Cage cameo, we're getting fatalities, and Scorpion Sub-Zero looks great.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agree, man. It's it's ready for it. I'm so ready for
As
it.
long as it's better than Annihilation, I'm good to go.
Right.
Yeah, because that was trash. Now, back when we were coming up, arcades were the epicenter of everything because that was the highlight for me going to the mall. I'll ask my mama, can I have $2? So I go to the arcade, and by maybe 20 minutes, depending on what game I played, that was gone. Because you really had to be strategic with what games you play in the arcade because some games were 25 cents a play, some games were 50 cents a play. So you knew if you were going to play, let's say, NBA Jam or a sports game, that was going to eat up all your money because it was 50 cents a quarter. So your $2 would be gone after one play of NBA Jam.
Yeah. NBA Jam was the game that took more quarters where I was at too and everything. And yeah, you definitely had to be careful of how much you know, how much you would spend on everything on different games and stuff, man, and everything. I just you know, I'm arcades were just such a big thing in the 80s and 90s and stuff, like, you know. And I just definitely just, I mean, the experience was great and stuff, you know, being able to, you know, play those games and everything and stuff, you know. But yeah, arcade NBA Jam, you know, that was probably my favorite basketball game, probably to now, you know what I'm saying? Because I mean, to me, you know, it was just kind of easier to kind of play it and stuff, you know, and everything and stuff. And the dunks were just like, what? You know what I'm saying? For its time, you know, they had the different sayings, boom shakalaka and all of that and stuff, you
Fire.
know, or is it the shoot? Yeah, he's on fire, you know.
Yeah, we
So
still say
you
it
know,
to
that
this
was
day.
definitely Yeah, man, we would just trip out. There was an old trip me and my friends would, talk about on the games. Oh, and also they had secret characters in NBA Jams too. You could select different people, and so I could get all the people that you could select and everything. But there was different codes that you could put in for the initials when you first log in. You could have that character, and I mean it would be hard to kind of tell who the character was because of the type of limitations that those systems had for its time, the 16-bit and stuff. But I think for us, we were like, okay, that's who it is. That's who it is. You can pick them. So
Yeah, because I remember.
just as
Yeah, because I
mhm.
remember buying NBA Jam for my Sega off of somebody. They had the game, let me borrow it, and I told my mama I wanted this game. So she paid this person X amount of dollars. Statute of limitations is up though for that game. And I remember me and my boys when they would spend the night at my house just hanging out, we would play NBA Jam for hours. DIS
Out.
start C button for Sega. That's the secret code to get George Clinton on the Sega port. I remember in the arcade and the various ports, the secret characters varied.
Mm. Yeah. They vary and stuff. Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. One of the most memorable basketball games that I feel that was out there on Sega Genesis and everything. There were some good ones before that. That was notable, worth mentioning. I think Double Dribble. It was good for its time. You could they had the picture of the actual dunk like up close and everything. And we thought for that time, we thought that was like, wow, that's just dope, and stuff. But yeah, no, that is definitely a game that's worth mentioning. Double Dribble and stuff.
Yeah, Arch
Um,
Rivals as well, because I think that was kind of
oh
inspiration for NBA Jam. Arch
yeah,
Rivals.
man, yeah. Arch Rivals, the that game. I think it definitely set a precedence to not a precedent, but it set it was the starting point for NBA Jam. Like that was the one basketball game that it had only two players like NBA Jams, and you could also purposely foul them. Because Arch Rivals that was kind of how that works. So to get the ball from another player and stuff, and that's what happened in NBA Jam. You could, purposely foul someone and get the ball back. So
Right, because I was a big Chicago Bulls fan, so I always picked pretty much either the Bulls or the Hornets every chance that I got. But I know Midway they did a documentary last year called Insert Coin, which I haven't seen yet, but I heard that is good. And they were saying that for the arcade port of NBA Jam, you had Shaq, but on the home consoles, he wasn't featured on there. Charles Barkley was on the home ports, and then Reggie Lewis and Drazen Petrovic they were on the arcade ports of NBA Jam, but once they both passed, they ended up taking them off of the home ports. And then Michael Jordan wasn't on the games anywhere because he owned his name and likeness. But they said that he specifically asked Midway to do a personal cabinet just for him. And I think Ken Griffey Jr. had the same thing done for him as well.
awesome, man. Yeah. That's definitely big on everything, gaming piece and stuff.
So
Yeah.
now at the arcades that you visited, I know some games owners had where X amount of time limit because you didn't want somebody that would be hogging the game all too long if you couldn't afford multiple cabinets of the same game so that you could max your money. But I remember what I would do is I would take a walk around the arcade first, kind of scope out to see which game is packed, which game is not getting played. And if it's a game that's packed, I would walk around, go play another game, and hopefully by the time I was done with that game I was playing, that it would be less bodies. But I never did the line my quarters up on the console because rule of thumb, if you ever go to an arcade, if you see somebody have their quarters lined up on the console, that tells you that I'm trying to beat this game. You can't join in. So I always would ask, like, hey, can I jump in?
Right. Yeah, that definitely was a rule and everything where I was coming up and everything. So the quarters were lined up. It was probably best to just like let me ask first and everything and stuff. But there were definitely people who took up a lot more time than what they were supposed to in the arcades. I mean, I was much of a younger boy back then and everything, and would notice that and stuff in my memory and everything. But it's definitely common to just kind of like go to a different. There were so many that were in different places back then, and go to another arcade and everything. And I mean, a lot of times when I went, there were people that were looking for help in some of the games like the beat 'em up type games and stuff. They were probably looking for a person to chime in and help out and everything. So most of the time, I think the good was out there to go ahead and play and everything and stuff for my experience. I had a pretty good a decent time with getting in on games that people were already
Yeah, now beat 'em ups, I played quite a few. You mentioned the Ninja Turtles beat 'em up, which still revered to this day. The Simpsons beat 'em up. I remember playing that heavily because Walmart would have that outside where they would have the claw game. But the one beat 'em up I never really played. But everybody still loves to this day. The movie sucked, but the game is still loved and revered to this day. And I'm talking about Double Dragon.
Oh yeah. Double Dragon, man. That's another game from my childhood that just like very that stood out and everything. It was hard as I don't know what, but and then Battletoads was even harder. But going back to Double Dragon, man. I mean, I have the 1, 2, and 3. I'll say 3 was probably my favorite. That was the one that it had the different countries that you could go to. You'll start off in the USA, and then you'll go to Japan and China. And as you beat the bosses actually becomes on your side. They get on your side and stuff. The thing about Double Dragon 3 was that you only had one life, and the game was just so hard. The special move was just almost impossible to do it whenever you needed it. But I love the game. I like the little challenge like that. So, um,
Yeah, we touched on Nintendo, but also right around 89, we have this console that debuted in America known as the Sega Genesis. And then they brought to us their mascot, Sonic, but they originally had this marketing tagline that threw shots at Nintendo where they would say Genesis does what Nintendo don't.
but
So what do you
Nintendo.
think was the main difference between NES and Sega Genesis. Besides, one was 8-bit and the other one was 16-bit with blast processing.
I think the main difference were probably the graphics. Nintendo. I think the Sega compared to the 8-bit Nintendo had a more classier look. Like if you look at the Sega Genesis, I got one right here. Matter of fact, yeah. So if you look at the Sega Genesis here, it's like more smooth around and everything like that, and whatnot. Like this looks like a very classier console, whereas the Nintendo, which I don't have in front of me right now, it was more on like the bulky end as far as how it looked like and everything and stuff. So it was like you had to open up the case thing and and everything, and the buttons were huge. It was always square. It's like a box thing. And I think as far as like presentation, Sega had it, but black is a more the color of it and everything and stuff. It just had a look where okay, this is the cooler console and everything. And then the graphics in the Sega, they were also better and everything. So they really stepped it up, in my opinion, with the Sega Genesis and stuff. This is the Sega Genesis is actually the second model. The first model, it was kind of on the bulkier side. But I mean, they still kept the color pretty much the same, and I mean, it was red in that console and stuff. But yeah. Those are probably some of the differences that I remember.
Yeah, because I can remember the one thing that I hated about Nintendo was the fact that you would have to go through a bunch of rubbing alcohol, Q-tips, and would have to blow the cartridge in order to get it to play, or you would have to smack the console in order to get your game to play. And if you had it sitting out on the floor, don't let nobody trip over the cord because your game will freeze up and you were done because there was no save features depending on what game you played.
That's right. That's another important thing. Yeah, you couldn't save on a lot of most of the games on Nintendo and everything. And so once when it messed up, you had to start all the way back over, man. And Nintendo's games, a lot of Nintendo games, they were not easy games. So if you got far in the game, that would be like maybe almost a deal breaker. Definitely for me to start back over. I'm like, I'm done.
That's where you would have rage, where you would throw the controller at the TV, especially if you were at the last level on Mario 3 and you were about to beat Bowser and somebody tripped and the game just froze.
Oh,
No.
that's right, man. That's right. And stuff. I think Mario 3 should have been the game that had that save feature, because I think it was kind of, a pretty long game and stuff. A lot of levels, a lot of different items. I think that's one game where they should have put into that save feature. Like they did Zelda. I mean, Zelda was way longer, but Mario, I think it could have.
Yeah, but Mario 3, they gave you that shortcut with that whistle where you could hit that whistle, that tornado, and
Yeah.
you would skip to the
Yep.
different levels. Now, are you familiar with the movie The Wizard that came out in '89 with Fred Savage?
Oh man, yeah, I remember bits and pieces of it, man. But yeah, I kind of
Well,
got to miss the. Yeah.
yeah, well, with that game, it was about an autistic boy who had a knack for video games. And the reason why this movie was significant was because it was the first time that anybody in the US got to see Mario Brothers 3. And they did a Nintendo Worlds, and it was actually an exclusive on the Nintendo Worlds cartridge. And actually, one person ended up finding that in a yard sale, and it went for a couple $1,000 because, like I said, it was the first time that anybody got to see Super Mario Brothers 3 before it got released commercially.
Wow. Yeah, man. I have to go back and check that one out. So he said it came out in '93. So that's,
It came out in '89, but it was pretty much a blatant tie-in for Nintendo because it was nothing but Nintendo products. It was the Power Pad, the Power Glove, pretty much all of the add-ons that Nintendo had. Now, when they came out with the Super NES, what would you say the main difference was between the NES, the Super NES, and if it was able to successfully compete with Sega? Because Nintendo kind of had that reputation that this is for kids, and when Sega came out, it was more so for teens.
That's right. Yeah, that's definitely a good point to make as far as the market that Sega was targeting versus Nintendo and everything. But with the Super, I think they definitely stepped it up and everything. Instead of putting the game, like, I guess from the visual look, instead of like putting the game into the port, they were hard to get in and get out. Well, get out, in my opinion, as far as when they were like, when they slot them in versus putting them into the top of the console, which is something that Sega, and I mean Atari did that too with putting the game at the top of the console. They're much easier to get in and out of the actual console and stuff. I thought that was a important piece that Nintendo switched around to do that. And the games on the SNES, they were pretty comparable, to the Sega Genesis and everything. I mean, you would say, for example, Mortal Kombat in Sega. I mean, Mortal Kombat in on the SNES and Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis. The SNES, the Super Nintendo had more buttons. The top buttons would be for example, for Mortal Kombat, the top buttons would be low kick, low punch, and then I think the X and B button would be the medium kick and medium punch, and then the Y and Z button for the Super would be the high punch, well, the fierce one, the fierce punch and the fierce kick. So that was similar to what arcades. Arcades would have like 6 buttons on them and stuff. So Sega, I mean the Super Nintendo has 6 buttons, but for the Sega Genesis, they only had 4 buttons. One of them being the start button. There was no select button, and the 3 buttons that were on there, in order to change from kick to punch, you had to push start if you had a 3-button controller, Sega Genesis controller. So so that was definitely an advantage that I think Super Nintendo had over the Sega Genesis that had more buttons. I mean, Sega eventually released other controllers that had more buttons to compare with it, but I mean, I the earlier consoles, they were only 3-button consoles.
Yeah, because I hated the 6-button layout for Sega. I had it once. I was like, never again. I'll stick with the 3 buttons.
Right. yeah. So those are some notable differences in the two consoles and everything. And then eventually, you know, the other systems they began adding more and more buttons to their controllers. I mean, the 64 had the joystick and everything, so it just became kind of like a common thing to add on more than just 2 to 3 buttons as the earlier consoles did, the 8-bit Nintendo and the 16-bit Sega Genesis.
Right, and then also at the same time with Super NES, NES, Sega, you also had the 32X, which was an add-on that you could put on top of your Sega Genesis. Atari had the Jaguar. SNK had the Neo Geo, which was super expensive, but from what I saw on YouTube reviews, that was a pretty good gaming console, but the price point was super duper high. And then in 1995, a little company over in Japan decided to say, hey, we want to get into the gaming industry. And you know the button layout: square, triangle, circle, and X. So can we talk about the impact of Sony and the PlayStation?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think this was another major event in the gaming industry whenever Sony decided to step their foot into the gaming market and stuff. The PlayStation One. I mean, by this time, I think Sega Genesis was kind of on the downward spiral. 94, 95, and everything, and PlayStation they were stepping in, and Nintendo they were looking probably at newer consoles. I mean, they were still probably releasing some of games in those years on those consoles, but it was time for somebody new to come in there. Year 2000, what I remember, was approaching, and people wanted something more virtual. More, I think around that time it was about getting into virtual 3D type stuff and everything, and you know uh so I think the Sega they released the Saturn in that period, or in Nintendo they came out with the 64 in that I'll say 94, 96 time span and stuff. Then once when PlayStation came in, a lot of their games they were on CDs and everything, and CDs were they were pretty big back then. I mean, before CDs in general, like going back, I guess, to music, cassettes were the things. But now it's CDs, and CDs were more, I guess, more visually appealing to more people and everything. I mean, I mean, digital wasn't really a thing for music just yet, but I mean, yeah, CDs were, more presentable than the cartridges and everything. And people began using the PlayStation One, and it just took off from there and stuff. And it definitely put a was one of the contributors to kind of Sega, you know, going a different route as far as their console days and everything. And, but Nintendo managed to tough out, that time and stick around. I mean, the 64 definitely had some pretty memorable games on it. The 007, the Mario game. Those are two games I remember playing. And Mario Kart was just like, one of my biggest, well, my favorite games on the N64 and stuff. So I think what pulled Nintendo, one of the biggest things that pulled Nintendo through were their games that were exclusive to the Nintendo. I think if Sega Genesis had a Mario Kart 64 on their console, Nintendo probably would have had a hard time to show their distinctiveness to other companies and stuff. So yeah, I think Nintendo's longevity stuck out because of their games and everything, and how they managed to keep up with the changes in the graphics and the video games and stuff.
Yeah, Sega had Sonic and they pretty much ran Sonic into the ground because PlayStation, they
Yeah.
had, the memory cards, and you had to make that tough decision of, do I overwrite this game's data in order to save this? Now, back up a little bit, handheld consoles were huge too. Nintendo, they released Game Boy. Sega, they had the Game Gear, which what I had, they took a whole lot of batteries, but I preferred Game Gear. But with PlayStation, like I say, it was a game changer. Tekken and all of the games that came out of the PlayStation catalog. But I think the one gaming console that was underrated, and looking back on it now, it was innovative, but because of PS2, it got overshadowed. And I'm talking about the Sega Dreamcast.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Very memorable a console. I never had a Dreamcast,
I did.
and I've been, yeah, those were that I was around like my high school years and stuff. I kind of took a little break from gaming around that time, but I always did want a Dreamcast because it's like I like Sega so much. I mean, Sega just had the games for me that I really like Streets of Rage. I was a big Streets of Rage fan. Streets of Rage 2 being my all-time favorite and stuff. It took so long for them to come out with a new one, which was just came out last year, by the way. And but yeah, Dreamcast was one of the games that one of the not games, but one of the consoles that definitely was it made its mark for its time. I think it dropped in '99, a little bit later and stuff.
Mm.
It was definitely I think it was a foot forward. I mean, they had the internet capability. That's something that the PS1 didn't have at the time. It didn't have, well, PlayStation didn't have that at that time. The PS2 didn't have the internet capability either and stuff. So it was definitely it set a step with gaming as far as it being you know the internet being accessible on your console and stuff. And but yeah, Dreamcast was if it was up to me, I definitely would have had one.
Yeah, I had it, and because Dreamcast was the only console, I think PS2 as well, had a home version of Marvel versus Capcom 2, and then they gave us the 2K series, which we all know and love, which leads me to my next question. We talked about Madden, touched on it briefly, and I mentioned the whole 2K series with NBA 2K and previously NFL 2K. Now we're seeing where either EA or 2K, they have a stranglehold on the market because there's no other company that can put out a basketball or football game because they own the exclusive license. So do you think that because of them owning the rights, that is making it harder for other developers to come in and for them to have competition? Because pretty much you're paying the same version of the game every year since they're the only game in town.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a huge factor in everything with other companies competing for the rights and everything as far as releasing similar content and so forth. Um, wow, Madden, I remember that game from back in the Sega Genesis days. Madden '94 in particular, I had that game and stuff, and definitely epic, another epic game worth mentioning in this in right now and stuff. I'm just glad to see like games like that with could hang around so long in the gaming market and stuff. So when people like me return and stuff, it's like, okay, there's a sense of familiarity on on what games to choose and what games to play and stuff. I mean, because there's so much new content out there now and stuff, and just to see like something from your childhood come back and be able to stand strong with all the new games and everything that's out now and stuff. It's just kind of it's a good thing. It's a very good thing and
Yeah,
stuff.
and
So a
the
lot of
one group I feel is underrated as a maker of games, and I feel that they don't really get a lot of credit, was SNK. I mean, King of Fighters, Samurai Showdown, the music that SNK pretty much put out on their games, they pretty much almost kind of sort of listened to what was going on over here and just pretty much kind of did their own version of it. And that's why video game soundtracks, if you look at it, are very popular now because of the work that SNK and also Capcom as well did for the music for their games.
Oh yeah. I mean, man, Capcom. Like, I definitely remember as a kid humming the Mega Man tunes from Mega Man 2 because their music was just so like, it was different. Like, I mean, gaming music, I think that definitely puts the extra notch in making the game your gaming experience even better and stuff. But Mega Man definitely had some good tunes in it and stuff. There was different state Bubble Man, his stage and stuff. I definitely remember humming that in school as a first grader and stuff when that game dropped. So Capcom, they definitely have had the notoriety and notoriety in music and stuff, and keeping that strong. So yeah.
And I also remember a lot of people playing Running Gun, which was a basketball game that was made by Konami. Now it was very good for its time. For its day, Konami, like I said, put out great games like the shirt that you have, Contra. They did the Simpsons beat 'em up. Did they do the Ninja Turtles beat 'em up as well?
I think they did do the arcade one, the arcade version of Turtles and stuff. I have to go back and check that, but yeah, I think they did do the Konami did. Yeah, they did release the arcade versions of Ninja Turtles and stuff.
Right. And another game from the NES that I feel is the hardest game ever, which I've never been. I think I've gotten to maybe the third or fourth boxer in this game, but I'm talking about Punch Out. Have you ever beaten Punch Out without the code to go straight to Iron Mike? I'm talking prime Iron Mike, before a tattoo on his face, Iron Mike, before biting your ear off, Iron Mike, where he was knocking cats out in 20 seconds, Iron Mike.
Man, I mean, I hate to say this, but I've never beaten Mike Tyson from the beginning. That's the one tough character. I've been meaning to do it, but I put my foot into it. I got to really kind of buckle down and put my foot into it. Before I get too up there, the age and everything, I definitely want to get down and really get into the Mike Tyson punch. I have it. I've had that game for forever. But Mike Tyson, man, is like, it was a pretty tough game. I think I saw one a video that I don't even think Mike Tyson could beat Mike Tyson. So
I don't even think he could beat Glass Joe. And I'm like, Glass Joe is the easiest because he was the first fighter. If you cannot beat Glass Joe and Punch Out, you suck.
That's right. Yeah, man. He
Pass
was
the
the easiest
sticks.
one. Yeah, man. He was the easiest one in the game. He wouldn't do anything and wouldn't really punch you unless you punched him. And but yeah, that was the easy character there. Stuff, so,
yeah, pass the sticks. If you're trash on that. Now, with a lot of the next gen consoles, Xbox and PlayStation released the new consoles at the fourth quarter of last year for last Christmas. And we're seeing with a lot of the newer consoles that gone are the days of having that big gaming archive collection where you can buy games digitally now. But the downside of that is that depending on what size console you get, your storage space is pretty limited unless you get a extension in order to have more storage space. Do you think now with this trend that we're going to lose that sense of community where you're going to go to like your mom and pop video game store and saying, I got this, I got that, to where everything is digital and up on the cloud?
Yeah, I think I mean, change is good, but I guess with the way the internet and technology is now, and the consoles are definitely taking advantage of that and stuff as far as marketing their video games and everything, and making them more playable and shareable in the gaming community. A lot of this stuff is going to probably be based in embedded in different ways of technology. So whether it's marketing or sharing games with other people and stuff and everything like that and whatnot and stuff. I mean, I definitely one of the people that kind of miss the old times of going to a store and getting a video game and everything. But the convenience that a lot of the consoles now offer as far as getting a new game and playing it with other people and stuff, it would just be too competitive to try to bring back that kind of experience. I mean, it's probably possible and stuff. Even the arcade industry, like that was probably me as a boy the number one reason why I would go to the mall, not the shop, but to go to the arcade. I had to go to a mall that had an arcade and stuff, you know.
Same
And
here.
yeah, man. And it's just like tell my mom, leave me here, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, those were some great experiences.
Yeah, it was
Stuff.
either there or Camelot, because if you look at games now, how we mentioned NBA Jam earlier, and then they later came out with TE, which is pretty much an update of the original NBA Jam. So if they release that in today's time, only thing they would do is release the main game, and then they would do an upgrade, which you would have to pay X amount of dollars for. And then, of course, with gaming now, with the microtransactions, to where we're gonna have you spend real money to get either fake money in the game, loot boxes, certain characters, and certain upgrades. And I think that's where they're making most of their money at, to where we either gonna make it off the microtransactions, or we're just gonna update this game to death, and you're gonna have to pay X amount of dollars for the upgrade for the season pass with the secret characters and everything.
Yeah, definitely a good thing to mention and everything and stuff. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of, in a sense, I kind of feel like, sometimes the gaming, gaming consoles and everything, they're kind of nickeling and diming people, with subscriptions that you have to pay for and everything like that and stuff. But like back in the day, we didn't have to, once you brought the console, you brought it. The only thing you paid for was like maybe a few accessories, the video games, and that's it. But now it's like, there's subscriptions that you have to buy to play with other people and everything and so forth and stuff. So I mean, there are definitely some, those differences are worth mentioning and so forth.
Right. And can we talk about real briefly Killer Instinct, which to me is very, very underrated. I tend to play with either Orchid, Jago, or TJ Combo.
Them the best ones to play with, in my opinion. I like Orchid. She had a lot of memorable consoles, but Jago was my go-to. Jago was definitely my go-to. The little short ninja, everything, and he was pretty good if you knew how to use them and stuff. A lot of his moves that I felt like on the controller, they were a little similar to Ryu and Ken Street Fighter with the Hadoken and everything, with the direction that you rotated the D-pad and stuff, those his moves were to me easier, remember and everything. Like I can pick up a controller, SNES controller today and still play with Jago like I can, with Ryu and Ken on Street Fighter and stuff, because those moves are just so, memorable on, in my head and stuff, but yes, Killer Instinct was, definitely another, worth mentioning and stuff. I mean, it came out after, the first Mortal Kombat drop and everything, and they did have finishing moves and everything in there. Some differences is like, Killer Instinct didn't go directly. Killer Instinct went pretty much directly into the second round. Once when your energy or your opponent's energy was depleted, it'll start back over, and you would go into the next round automatically. Whereas in Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2, the round would end, and then you'll just start back where you started in the first round, and standing that far apart and stuff. So Killer, and I think the experience with Killer Instinct made it more realistic, more interesting, where you would just get up and fight your second round from where your opponent or you died at. You just, okay, this is where you were at when you got knocked down. This is where you're gonna start a new round. So
And Killer Instinct gave us Ultra Combo.
Yeah, man. That's right, Ultra. Killer Instinct definitely had the combos and started off I think the combos that Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat didn't initially have. I think they have them now and stuff, but the combos were definitely Killer Instincts. I get the thing that made their game stand out more. You could do Ultra, Master, Super. Once you did those combos, they'll let you know on the screen, this is the Ultra combo, this is the Super, this is the Master. They made the combos stand out that, okay, you're really beating this person up. The Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat didn't have that like stand out. I mean, the thing that stood out to me with Mortal Kombat was the uppercut. Once you uppercut somebody in Mortal Kombat, they go way up there. So he's like, dog, we hit the thing like, that guy would come out and make that sound like cookie, or I forgot what he used to say.
Dan Forden.
Toasty, yeah.
Toasty.
Yeah, man. So that stood out in Mortal Kombat when you really got somebody with that uppercut. You know what I'm saying? And that really stood out. And Street Fighter, they had their times, the hot the uppercuts and stuff like that. With how they would go so high in the air and everything and stuff. So yeah, Street Fighter had its moments and stuff. I think with Street Fighter, they had the speed, they had the hyper, modes and everything, or how fast you want it to go and everything. So you would fight somebody like Chun-Li or Blanca, you would be all over the screen trying to catch
Mm-hmm.
on some of the matches that I remember playing. But
Right.
But yeah, just for Mortal Kombat, that was definitely their biggest thing was their combos stood out more.
Right. And Tekken was also out at this time too in Virtual Fighter, and they were different from the games we mentioned because they were 3D based games, and that was rare at the time when Virtual Fighter and Tekken first came out to see a fighting game in 3D.
Yeah, that was definitely rare, and that made them stand out. Yeah, exactly, man, and everything. I didn't spend a whole lot of time with Tekken, like maybe I could have and it should have, but but yeah, Tekken was definitely a memorable arcade game that stood out in the arcades and the home gaming consoles and stuff, and it's also had the longevity, similar to the other games we mentioned. So it's still around to this day and stuff. Yeah. Some of the Primal Rage, that was a dinosaur fighting game, and Eternal Champions. Well, Primal Rage was also on SNES, so I'm kind of not sure why that game couldn't stick around and everything. I guess because of the limitations on the characters. I guess I'm not exactly sure. But the Eternal Champions, I felt like that one could have made it as far as longevity is to mention and stuff. That was a great game as well.
Right. And what's your take on the whole esports phenomenon, and then also the retro gaming phenomenon, where our age range, we're of that age where we want to go back to when we were kids sitting down in front of the TV playing Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, PS1, 2, 3, and you're seeing pop up old school arcades, barcades, and pretty much 90s is in. So what's your take on those two different phenomenons, and do you think that we'll still see them going on?
Man, like me, I'm definitely a retro gamer. I like the older stuff and how they're taking a lot of the old stuff and making it like new, but still staying relevant to like a lot of the old games that are out there and stuff. Or that were out there and stuff. I really think that this phenomenon to bring back the '90s is definitely a great thing and stuff, especially with the whole pandemic of people being home and everything and stuff. I mean, the new stuff that came out between, since my childhood, I mean, it's been really good and everything and stuff. But I think people like to cling to what they know and everything. And being that I took such a long break from video games and stuff, I mean, off and on break and stuff, it just kind of gives me a sense of familiarity of, what games to choose from, what games to play, what games to buy, what games I'll be interested in and stuff. So yeah. So whenever I see a game that came out from a long time ago, more than likely I'm gonna pick that one up and play it before a new game.
Wow. Crazy.
Mhm.
So do you remember your most memorable video game run at an arcade, like your best run ever, where either you were on your last leg, you beat a game completely, or you beat a game when you were down to your last 25 or 50 cents?
Wow. Yeah, I mean there were a couple that stood out and stuff to me. the X-Men arcade and stuff. You know, I just recently streamed that game and stuff. You know, that was a game that took up a lot of quarters. You know, and you know, that was definitely a game that I spent a lot of time on. You know, trying to beat and everything, and it would take me a long time at the arcade to do that, and a lot of quarters and stuff. You know, so you know, that was definitely a game. And it was generally the beat 'em ups that I felt like you know, I spent the most time on in my childhood. Like, I mean, I think in the versus games like the Mortal Kombat's that were at the arcades and stuff, I think after a certain level, the AI, the AI in your opponent, especially if you're playing the computer and stuff and not an actual person. I mean, it you know your moves so well that you know you're not going to beat this person. You no matter how many quarters you put in, no matter how hard you try and stuff, you know, it would get that difficult, you know. So yeah, it was generally the beat 'em ups that I remember that you know I spent the most money, the most time, and most effort on and stuff with the X-Men. The X-Men was one, and I want to say one of the Double Dragons. So I think it was the first one that had the arcade stuff that I pretty much dedicated my time and my life to get to the final boss and the final stage and stuff, you know, and everything.
Mhm. Man, that's crazy. I have two memorable runs of my own. First one was it was at Circus in Las Vegas, and they had an arcade area, and they had Marvel versus Capcom 2. So I was playing it by myself, and then somebody wanted to hop in and get in. So they did. They lost. I won. More people ended up coming. So I gave 7 people all the smoke in Marvel versus Capcom 2 because I tend to go with Ryu, BB Hood. No, take that back. Gable, Gable, Gambit, and Ryu because when they pull off their triple finisher, it takes a lot of energy because Gambit with the Royal Flush, Gable with the Viper Beam, and Ryle with the Hadouken, or BB Hood because she has everybody shooting. It takes a lot of energy. So I would primarily go with that crew. And it was 7 people I took down in a row. And then another one was it was at Tilt in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I was down to my last quarter and I beat X-Men versus Street Fighter on my last quarter.
Wow. Yeah, those are some definitely notable games and everything, you know, to put that in. I mean, that's dope, man. You know, the do the fighting games like that, you know, and so forth, you know, yeah, I think that's dope, you know, to be able to, you know, keep your spot, you know, because once when you beat them, they had to go and, you know, you get to stay for another round and stuff. So that kind of feeling after that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that
You
was an
know,
incentive
giving,
with NBA Jam because with that, if you were the winning team, you got to stay and play.
yeah, stay in play. That's right. That's right. You know, and other person they had to go ahead and go. You know, yeah, man. Those are some good feelings and stuff with games and stuff. You know, I mean, I had a few moments and stuff, but yeah, beat 'em ups were my really my go to back then and stuff. You know, I kind of like Turtles. You know, I spent a lot of time on Turtles arcade and stuff. You know, played that a lot and stuff. You know, but yeah, Marvel Company. It would be I mean, you know, I guess there were so many people on those arcades. I kind of like, you know, let me just do Turtles for
Yeah,
them.
I was finally able to beat the Ninja Turtle beat 'em up when I went to Denver about 2 years ago. They had this arcade spot where you paid a certain price, but all the games were free play. So I was finally able to beat the Turtles beat 'em up with Michelangelo, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's you know. I mean, I'm noticing that a few places that I go to. I can't remember the last one, but you know, you can just pay a certain you know price, and the arcade's pretty much yours and stuff. You know, so yeah, awesome, man, awesome.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
some of them they also
beating
have
a
like
game
the
like
home
that.
ports. They have like the home consoles that you can play as well. And last question, I'm gonna get you out of here on this. Your thoughts on like the arcade sticks and also what's legit because we've seen a lot of those websites pop up. Some of them are kind of janky, and the others are like the real deal. So, what's your take on the arcade sticks?
All right, so I recently purchased one, a retro arcade gaming stick console and everything. Um, they're much less expensive than the PS5. I'll say that's one of the strong points. That's a good point and everything. And they come with a whole bunch of games and stuff, and I think the design of them are pretty great. I think the controls, I mean, I'm not really used to playing with a joystick and like at home. I mean, in an arcade, you expect that you go to one, but at home, you expect to have a controller. Um, so I felt like there was a little limitation with that. But then, you know, playing it wasn't really too difficult. It wasn't really that difficult to get back into the playing experience, especially when you're playing a game that you only have played on an arcade, like The Simpsons. That was one. The Simpsons arcade. Like there were a lot of Simpsons games that were out there. It was on the Nintendo and other consoles that I remember, but the Simpsons beat 'em up arcade that's something that I've never played on a home console. I've always played that on a arcade, the buttons and the joystick. So I want to say that the experience overall was it was pretty decent. The downside I felt like for the gaming console, I really wish I had the option to play with a controller versus the joystick and the buttons and everything. I really wish I could do that, but I mean, they're up to 4 players on the retro console and everything. But I think the first 2 players would have to use the console, and then the other 2 players can use the controller. But you have to buy an accessory for that, like an adapter to split the consoles. I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of technical support. I mean, it was easy to set up and everything and stuff, but I mean, I don't feel like there was a whole lot of technical support as far as like how to get the other games and everything. But if you read the manuals are very good. They give you they're very, very detailed and everything. Um, so it's like you just kind of take a moment and try to read through them and stuff. I think they did a good job with giving the description on how to get the newer games added on from the internet onto them and stuff. You can add on games from the internet. A lot of the games were in different languages. I mean, that's one thing I didn't like, but most of the games were in English. So I thought that was a strong point with the retro con. I kind of expected that because I recently brought not recently, about 2 years ago, I brought like one of the mini Nintendo mini ones and stuff that came in with like a bunch of games loaded on it and stuff. And I did the same thing with Sega Genesis too. I mean, I haven't played that one all the way yet, so I just recently brought that one like a month ago. But a lot of the games on the Nintendo Mini, they were in a different like Asian language and stuff. I'm not too sure which one, but you couldn't read like a lot of the games that had dialogue in it and stuff. You couldn't really read. I mean, I don't speak that language, so I don't know. So I mean, that's one of the things to look out for with the home retro consoles that I'm talking about here and stuff. You just have to watch out for them. I mean, a lot of times you're just there to play the game. And so you just kind of just skip over all of that and stuff and just play the game. And so I mean, I kind of look at that, but some of the games they were most of the games worked, but there were some of the games that kind of like got kind of hung up and like they were reset on their own and stuff. So I'm like, man, like when you buy something like that, you want it to be right. So I would go back to the manual and they'll say, okay, you just have to re-download the game again and stuff. Which at first it didn't really click to me on how that worked, but now it's like I've got the kind of gist how to, do that. And it was I'll say I'm on the brink of that. It was kind of worth the purchase and everything, just to get that experience back from the arcades and everything. I've never had an arcade type machine until now, stuff, and
Right.
it's definitely something that I think was worth the experience.
Right. It's definitely more convenient than buying a bunch of those different arcade one-ups if you don't have the house space for different arcade one-up consoles. Although I do kind of want that arcade one-up NBA Jam one with Jam, TE, and Hang Time.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and that's another thing that came in the packages and stuff. They give you like this whole well, I probably won't do it. I'll probably get someone else to whole way to like build your own arcade, and then you'll put the gaming box that they ship you into it. And you know, so I thought that was interesting on how you can build your own, you know, arcade box and
Custom cabinet.
everything. Yeah, custom cabinets. So they gave specific instructions on what the type of wood and everything like that that you need to make that and stuff. So I think overall the people who made this, they really tried to, you know, give what they could and everything and stuff. So I give them, you know, you know, give them a pass for that and stuff. You know?
Right.
So but I don't regret the purchase, you know, that I made for the retro consoles. I would say that they're all not the same. You know, I've heard different stories about different ones, but you know, my experience has been pretty good with mine overall.
Okay, cool deal. So definitely do your research, people. Make sure that it's legit so that you don't get gypped and all of that good stuff. So do you have any shout outs you want to give before we wrap this interview, and also plug social media where folks can see you streaming online your games?
Well, yeah. So, you know, I just wanted to, you know, thank you for the interview and everything. This is the first one I've done and everything, and you know, and I think gaming is very very good thing to do whenever you know, you have some downtime, and you know, I think people who aren't in the game and they should, you know, it's worth looking into what kind of games you like and stuff. You know, you know, so just figuring out, you know, what works for you as far as gaming and stuff. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with being a video gamer or anything like that and stuff. You know, that was kind of the connotation that came up whenever I was getting older and stuff. And, you know, I kind of knew the direction that people wanted me to go in as far as taking school more serious and stuff. So it benefited. Yeah. So just find games that you like and just go for them, man, and just keep, you know, keep sticking at it and stuff. And eventually, the games that you haven't beat before, they're going to be games that, you know, are a piece of cake now and stuff, you know, and everything. I look at some games from the past and I'm like, there's no way I could have beat like this game and stuff. And then I play it now and I understand it better than what I did as a kid. And I guess that's the way it goes with everything in life. But but yeah, social media, you know, I have a page. You just go to Facebook and type in Ike, the retro gamer, IKE, the retro gamer. That, you know, you'll get my social media there stuff pretty much. So
All right, so definitely go there
I'm
and check it out.
also over there, and you can definitely check out a lot of my streaming videos. I'm also on YouTube as well, Ike the Retro Gamer and stuff. I have a channel there as well where I most of my more current streams are on YouTube. So, yeah.
All right, so check them out there, and you can catch this interview in audio or video form wherever you stream your podcast, and on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/beyond the album cover. Join the Facebook group, facebook.com/beyond the album cover to stay updated with everything related to the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend, fellow Spartan, fellow gamer, forever playing with power, Ike, the retro gamer, aka Isaac Crumpton. Thank you for coming on to Beyond the Album Cover, bro.
Thanks for having me, man. I very much appreciate it.
Not a problem.